Chapter 7:15 Life and Death. Chapter 7:15 Life and Death. Among us, only you are qualified to contend against Violet Fairy. But I'm afraid you can't defeat her. As for Zhong Ming, he is quite powerful by nature. Now that he has become a copper-armored demon god, even a warrior as powerful as you can't overcome him. Ling Yu, the vice palace master, said full of frustration. After hearing this, the palace master Destruction knew what he had said was true even if he was unwilling to admit it. Although Zhong Ming and Violet Fairy are fortunate, they are far behind from Yun Fan. Mo Dao said in a low voice. Yun Fan. The experts of the Eternal Realm from the ancient sect all thought of the current Great Elder of Cloud Sea Asgard, Yun Fan, and a flow of indignation emerged from their heart. Yun Fan was the sitting Great Elder of the Cloud Sea Asgard, who was considered as the strongest among the Eternal Realm in the Cloud Sea Asgard experts. What bothered them was that many years ago Yun Fan had been just as strong as them, and the Palace Master Destruction had been even much more powerful than Yun Fan at that time. Just because of the Eternal Zone expedition that happened then, however, Yun Fan had been so lucky to get a demon god baptismal pool and successfully turn into a silver-armored demon god with its help. That was much more formidable than a simple copper-armored demon god. Since then, Yun Fan made an earth-shaking progress and became the strongest expert of the Eternal Realm in the Cloud Sea Asgard, only ranked behind Shen Yi, Palace Master of the ancient sect, among the experts of the Eternal Realm in the whole firmament territory. Other experts of the Eternal Realm, even those who turned into copper-armored demon gods, were still miles away from Yun Fan. He had been so lucky that time. There were so many experts in the firmament territory, but till now Yun Fan was the only one who had managed to turn into a silver-armored demon god by virtue of a demon god baptismal pool. Luck is also part of someone's strength. We have no choice but to wait for the next opportunity. Fortunately, the Eternal Zone will open every 100 years, which is not too much for us. The Palace Master Destruction said helplessly. That's right. Other experts of the Eternal Realm nodded in agreement. Suddenly, a burst of light emerged from the other wormhole. These little guys are coming out of the Eternal Zone. What have they gotten? Let's see. Most of the present experts of the Eternal Realm were full of expectation. As rays of light raised, many disciples of the Divine Realm strode from the wormhole. Although they were tired out after the 10-day fight, they had made some gains just for surviving in the Eternal Zone. Those disciples strode out of the wormhole one by one. Among the 6 disciples of the ancient sect, Liu Chong, Feng, Donga, and Luo Yong walked out from the Eternal Zone. Boy, what have you got? The Palace Master Destruction asked one of his best disciples with a smile. I got 3 drops of Demon God's Essence blood, Feng answered. 3 drops. Very good. The Palace Master Destruction nodded with satisfaction. Those demon gods are quite strong. Even the weakest copper-armored demon god is a tough opponent among the advanced demon gods. Although they are clumsy and not good at fast movements, their bodies are quite strong to be killed. You still managed to get 3 drops of demon god's essence blood only in 10 days. Very good. It's true. It's not easy to kill those demon gods. I really spared great efforts to find one for them alone, but failed to kill him in more than half an hour. A disciple from the Cloud Sea Asgard rushed to finish him off and got the demon god's essence blood. Luo Yong said bitterly, who only got 1 drop of demon god's essence blood. Donga, as powerful as Luo Yong, was lucky and got 2 drops. When it came to Liu Chong, he was a superior divine realm expert with great strength. So he got more demon god's essence blood, 6 drops in total. Jian Wushuang and Sichu Yi haven't come out yet. I wonder what they have gained in the Eternal Zone. The Palace Master Destruction showed a slight smile. But this time, as light raised again, an awkward figure strode out from the wormhole. Most of the experts and disciples showed a strange look when they looked at the figure. He was Wu Dao from the Cloud Sea Asgard. Wu Dao was the strongest among the 3 superior Divine Realm experts who entered the Eternal Zone, even one of the best among the Divine Realm experts in the Cloud Sea Asgard. Logically, it should be very easy for him to make a breakthrough in the outer layer of the Eternal Zone. But now, he was as pale as death and his aura was weak to the extreme. It was obvious that he was seriously wounded. The The experts from the Cloud Sea Asgard all frowned and quickly walked towards Wu Dao. One leading elder among them asked in a low voice, "Wu Dao, what happened?" "Distinguished elders, I and junior brother Dao Mai were tricked by Jian Wushuang," Wu Dao said with a grudge, and then he narrated what he had gone through in the Eternal Zone. "What? Did you just say that Jian Wushuang plotted against you too along with the Demon God clan?" The elders from the Cloud Sea Asgard were shocked. "Right." Wu Dao nodded solemnly. "Are you sure that Jian Wushuang joined hands with those demon gods, and they did not just happen to attack Jian Wushuang too?" The leading elder asked again. "That? I'm not sure. Those demon gods did attack me and junior brother Dao Mai rather than Jian Wushuang," Wu Dao replied. "How about Jian Wushuang? Do you see him?" The elder made a detailed inquiry. "No." Wu Dao nodded. "Really?" The elder thought for a while and then he claimed, "Well, let it go. No matter whether Jian Wushuang is alive or dead, you must say you never met Jian Wushuang in the Eternal Zone if someone asks you." "Yes." Wu Dao nodded seriously. Many disciples of the divine realm came out from the wormhole one after another. After about an hour, all the experts who had survived in the Eternal Zone were almost out. Only less than 60 disciples finally came out from the Eternal Zone among the original 80 disciples from the 3 magnates and top 9 sects. There were 2 noticeable sects. One was the Cloud Sea Asgard, which dispatched 3 superior divine realm experts to the Eternal Zone, but Wu Dao was the only one who survived but suffered serious injuries. Another attractive sect was the Ancient Sect. Jian Wushuang, a peerless genius that scared all sects, who was tutored by Shen Yi, Palace Master of the Ancient Sect, had not shown up his face from the Eternal Zone yet. But the wormhole was going to close. Chapter 716, Shen Yi's Anger, Part 1. Chapter 716, Shen Yi's Anger, Part 1. Finally, the 2 wormholes that connected to the Eternal Zone finished closing and completely disappeared from sight. The whole area was filled with silence. Jian Wushuang didn't come out? The 8 eternal real experts from the Ancient Sect seemed confounded for a moment. If someone didn't leave the Eternal Zone in time, death was the only remaining possibility. Even if he was not dead yet, the Eternal Zone would not be open for another 100 years. How could a person survive there for 100 years? Even experts of Eternal Realm like them would not be able to survive there for that long. Shit. The 8 Ancient Sect experts of Eternal Realm, including Feng, Liu Chong, and the other disciples, looked rather grim. Even though, among the 6 Ancient Sect disciples who entered the Eternal Zone, Sichu Yi also didn't make it out in time, Jian Wushuang was much more important than Sichu Yi. Jian Wushuang was an incredibly peerless genius and the personal disciple of Shen Yi. As long as he didn't die early, he was almost guaranteed to reach the Eternal Realm, and he even had a very good chance of becoming a Dao Master. But Jian Wushuang had not exited from the Eternal Zone. The surrounding experts from each sect remained silent at this time, but the looks they gave each other said everything. Good. Jian Wushuang died in the Eternal Zone. The Ancient Sect will definitely suffer a loss with his absence. The Ancient Sect. The Ancient Sect may have suffered a loss, but the issue is that Jian Wushuang is a personal disciple of Shen Yi. Now, with his youngest disciple dead, he might go crazy. I think there is something odd about his death though. Shush. We all understand, but we don't dare to say it out loud. Let's see what happens. Shen Yi is not someone we can offend. Although he seems to be a good-tempered man who treats others kindly, he's unstoppable when he becomes angry. The trip to the Eternal Zone had come to an end. However, the experts of the top sects were in no hurry to leave because they were curious to see what would happen next. They all knew that Shen Yi would never let the death of Jian Wushuang with just that. At this moment, many different ideas were racing through the minds of the 3 magnates. In the area where the Boundless Demon Sect was. "And Chao, did you kill Jian Wushuang?" The Eternal Realm experts from the Boundless Demon Sect had gathered together and were looking at a pale-faced black-robed elder. This black-robed person was the one who had chased Jian Wushuang into the inner layer of the Eternal Zone. He was An Chao, an elder of the Boundless Demon Sect. The arrow from Jiyu Yang had left a wound on him. I did injure him and even managed to kill his doppelganger, but I wasn't able to confirm his death. And Chao frowned and said, the kid had a remarkable escape skill. At the cost of burning his spiritual power, he was able to instantly increase his speed by 100 times within a short period. Even while using my full power, I was only able to keep up with him. He eventually fled to the inner layer. I did follow after him, but I came across a silver-armored demon god in the Eternal Realm before I managed to kill him. The silver-armored demon god terrifyingly powerful, so I was forced to use my trump card just to survive. So, what you're saying is that you didn't witness Jian Wushuang's death, right? Another elder of the Boundless Demon sect asked. Yes. And Chao nodded and continued, however, he's definitely dead. He burned up all of his spiritual power and even started burning his blood. Definitely dead. The elders of Boundless Demon sect laughed. An elder said, the Eternal Zone is already very dangerous, and he even entered the inner layer, which is a death trap. He has to be dead. Yes. Those demon gods utterly hate us outsiders. There's no doubt that they would kill him on sight, the elder beside him echoed. Hopefully, and Chao nodded slightly, but there was an awful premonition hidden deep in his heart. After all, he had seen Jian Wushuang working together with those demon gods to kill Wu Dao and the others. But, other than Jian Wushuang, these demon gods hated all outsiders. In the area where the ancient sect was, the 8 Eternal Realm experts had gathered together. Palace Master Destruction began to inform the sect that Jian Wushuang had not made it out of the Eternal Zone and he had just finished telling Xian Yi. After Xian Yi heard the news, he was silent for a moment before quickly replying, I see. My doppelganger will arrive soon. Before it gets there, make sure you don't let any of the 3 magnates leave. I understand. Palace Master Destruction nodded. After he finished delivering the news, Palace Master Destruction sighed in relief, but he could sense Xian Yi's anger in those last few words he said. It seems like someone is going to suffer a lot. Palace Master Destruction sighed while looking toward the experts of the 3 magnates with pity in his eyes, but he immediately spoke, everyone from Cloud Sea Asgard, the Immortal Dynasty, and the Boundless Demon sect. After hearing his words, the experts of the 3 magnates had unnaturally fearful expressions on their faces. Anyone who even knew a little about his past would be fearful of Palace Master Xian Yi. Xian Yi, he is the strongest Eternal Realm expert in the Firmament territory. The elder from Cloud Sea Asgard, Lady Red, clasped both of her hands as various stories about Xian Yi began to run through her mind. Literally, he is a monster. It's very rare for him to personally make a move, but once he does, that person will not meet a good end no matter who they are. No one knows how powerful he is because he has never used his full power. He's always been an unfathomable and unpredictable individual. Many years ago, our palace master came to blows with Xian Yi. But, after that, our palace master ordered us not to offend Xian Yi. As far as I know, our palace master merely fought with Xian Yi's doppelganger that time. In addition, it is well known that Yuan Yi is not the type to get angry easily. However, if provoked, he can create a massacre. More importantly, he usually defends his disciples. Now, with his youngest disciple dead, even if he has no evidence that it was Cloud Sea Asgard that killed Jian Wushuang, he would not just let it go. Upon hearing his words, many experts of in Cloud Sea Asgard had an even grimmer expression on their faces. In the Immortal Dynasty and the Boundless Demon sect, the Eternal Realm experts also looked solemn. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the air above them. When she saw the figure suddenly appear, Lady Red Elder took a deep breath and she looked around. Then, a low and deep voice spread about. Everyone, prepare yourselves and make sure to stay behind me while we face Xian Yi's wrath. Chapter 717, Xian Yi's Anger, Part 2. Chapter 717, Xian Yi's Anger, Part 2. In the air above them, a gigantic purple-haired man slowly emerged and dead silence immediately reigned over the whole area. The strongest Eternal Realm expert in the Firmament territory, ancient sect Palace Master Xian Yi from Sword Palace, had arrived. When the experts of the 3 magnates and the other 8 top sects saw Xian Yi, they realized that his face didn't have the usual mild expression. Instead, he looked slightly ferocious. They all began to feel frightened at this moment. The name of people, and the shadow of trees. Xian Yi was famous in the firmament territory, and he was a nightmare for most of the Eternal Realm experts in the firmament territory. Even though it was only his doppelganger, it still possessed unprecedented power. Jian Wushuang, he was my disciple. Xian Yi said, in a voice that did not display any emotions. Although he was only in the skyscraping realm, his strength was extraordinary. It would not be a problem at all for him to pass through the Eternal Zone. But he died in the end. Cloud Sea Asgard, Immortal Dynasty, and Boundless Demon Sec. You, the three magnates, should give me an explanation, shouldn't you? Explanation? What explanation? Lady Red, the elder who was leading the Cloud Sea Asgard group, snorted and continued, the Eternal Zone is full of dangers. Even Eternal Realm experts can face death there, let alone those disciples in the skyscraping realm and the divine realm. Even one of the elders from our Cloud Sea Asgard fell last time. We, Cloud Sea Asgard, had more disciples die this time. Among the three who were in the superior divine realm, there was only one who came back alive. We also lost so much, so who should we go to for an explanation? Life and death, poor or rich, it's all destined. Your disciple has died in the Eternal Zone. The person you should blame is the one who was not strong enough. Who else is there to blame? The red-robed elder spoke in an unhurried manner, and the experts of Cloud Sea Asgard, as well as the other two magnates, nodded along with him. Oh! Xian Yi raised his eyebrows, but his voice grew cold. If my disciple really was killed by those demon gods, then I have nothing to say. However, before he finished, Xian Yi's figure suddenly faded away, but when his figure appeared again, he had already grabbed someone's hand. And that person was Wu Dao. Xian Yi, what are you going to do? All of the experts of Cloud Sea Asgard were extremely surprised. Xian Yi entirely ignored them, and a purple light flashed in his eyes. Then, he looked towards Wu Dao. Wu Dao looked back at Xian Yi, but his eyes immediately grew empty. Tell me, did you see my disciple in the Eternal Zone? Xian Yi asked. Yes, Wu Dao nodded dully. This scene greatly shocked everyone in the surroundings. What? The Eternal Realm experts in Cloud Sea Asgard looked surprised, and the expressions on their faces suddenly changed. They were all aware of what had happened. Wu Dao was completely under Xian Yi's control. He had taken over his mind directly, so Wu Dao was not even conscious of what was happening. All he could do was answer Xian Yi's questions slowly and honestly. How was he doing it? What an incredibly odd technique. Have the elders of Cloud Sea Asgard ordered you to kill my disciple? Xian Yi continued to ask. Yes, Wu Dao continued to answer in a dull manner. Shit. Damn it. What? What? The Eternal Realm experts in Cloud Sea Asgard all began to panic. They knew beforehand that Xian Yi would be furious when they killed Jian Wushuang. However, no matter how mad he was, Xian Yi wouldn't completely lose it as long as he wasn't able to find evidence proving that they did it. But they never expected Xian Yi to have a method that directly controlled someone's mind. They had underestimated Xian Yi. What happened? Xian Yi continued to ask. I found him, along with my junior brother, Dao Mai. We should have been able to kill him, but a group of demon gods appeared out of nowhere, so we could only escape. Dao Mai was killed by those demon gods, and I narrowly escaped because of secret skill, Wu Daomu said dully. I see. Xian nodded and immediately let go of Wu Dao. Wu Dao quickly came back to his senses, then looked around blankly and said, What happened? What happened to me? He had absolutely no idea what had happened. At this moment, Xian Yi looked toward the experts of Cloud Sea Asgard with his ice-cold eyes. Cloud Sea Asgard, do you have anything you want to say now? Xian Yi's voice grew cold. Lady Red was somewhat terrified and shouted promptly, Mr. Xian Yi, Wu Dao did harm your disciple, but he wasn't the one that killed him. Your disciple's death had nothing to do with our Cloud Sea Asgard. You're right. I had intended to kill all 14 of your Eternal Realm experts, but I've decided to give you a discount, so I'll only kill half of them. After saying that, he immediately made his move. In an instant, a strikingly cold sword light appeared, filling up the entire area. This sword light was extremely dazzling, But it also looked slow and stodgy, as if it possessed no power at all. It didn't seem like anything special, but this slow attack shocked all the Eternal Realm experts and their disciples. Everyone had fallen into a trance. They had become immersed in this brilliant sword light and seemed to have forgotten everything. The 14 Eternal Realm experts of Cloud Sea Asgard also went numb at that moment. The sword light seemed to attack them, but none of the 14 experts tried to fight back. Like a fool, they all went numb, allowing the sword light that appeared before them to freely dance around them. Swish! The sound of a sword being sheathed was heard as the sword light finally dissipated. The experts and disciples in the surroundings slowly came back to their senses. Once they regained their senses, they looked forward and became completely stunned. Among the people of Cloud Sea Asgard, the 14 Eternal Realm experts still stood there in a scattered manner, but 7 of them were missing their heads. 7 heads instantly flew up into the air at the same time. With one sword, 7 of 14 Eternal Realms experts had been instantly killed. Xian Yi gently waved his sleeve as the sweeping sword essence faded away. His face still looked indifferent, as if what happened just now had nothing to do with him. The whole area remained completely silent. A deathly silence. And this silence hung over the area for a long time. Chapter 718, Xian Yi's Anger, Part 3. Chapter 718, Xian Yi's Anger, Part 3. The whole area was completely silent, except for the sounds of the 7 ice-cold corpses slowly hitting the ground. The 7 people who survived, swallowed, and stood there with their eyes wide opened due to their extreme fear. Watching this, the experts of the other sects were filled with shock. They all knew that the ancient sect palace master, Xian Yi, was terrifying and domineering, but nobody knew how powerful he really was. In the beginning, they believed that Xian Yi might be strong enough to fight the 14 Eternal Realm experts from Cloud Sea Asgard, but they thought it would be a tough fight. They didn't expect him to kill them with only one attack. With only one attack, he had killed 7 experts from Cloud Sea Asgard. That incredible sword move frightened everyone. Apparently, Xian Yi was still holding back his strength, or else all 14 of them would be dead. Such terrifying strength. Such overwhelming strength. After seeing his strength, some of them started to wonder if Xian Yi had broken through and become a supreme Tao master. It seemed to them that only a legendary Tao master could perform such an incredible sword move. Go back and tell your palace master, nobody kills my disciples, no matter how badly they want to. You should be grateful that my disciple was not actually killed by your Cloud Sea Asgard. Otherwise. Humph. Xian Yi's voice reverberated throughout the area. Although Xian Yi didn't finish, everyone understood what he meant. The 7 people survived, including Lady Red, were suppressing their fear deep down inside of them, not daring to say a thing. They promptly told it in secret to Yun Fan, the Great Elder, and the Palace Master behind them. Cloud Sea Asgard has already given me an explanation. Now, it's the Immortal Dynasties and Boundless Demon sect's turn. Xian Yi looked towards the experts of the Immortal Dynasty and Boundless Demon sect, those 2 big groups. Fear swept over these experts when they saw him staring at them. The uncaged and untamed middle-aged man who led Immortal Dynasty promptly said, "Mr. Xian Yi, the Immortal Dynasty didn't hurt your disciple." "Neither did our Boundless Demon sect," said the people of the Boundless Demon sect. At this time, they absolutely would not dare to admit that they had intended to hurt Jian Wushuang. As for An Chao of the Boundless Demon sect, who had actually chased after Jian Wushuang, he was definitely the most frightened one. He was terrified that he would be got caught by Xian Yi, the same way Wu Dao was, then controlled and forced to tell the truth. If that happened, he would definitely meet a very miserable end. If you 2 magnates give me 10 million divine gems each, I will not get to the bottom of this. As for each of the other top sects, you should give me 1 million divine gems. Anyone have a problem with that? Xian Yi's voice grew cold. Okay, no problem. No problem. The Immortal Dynasty, Boundless Demon sect and those top sects in the area were totally overawed by Xian Yi's strength, so no one dared to go against him. They knew that Xian Yi was taking advantage of the situation. However, they did have the ulterior motives. After all, they did make plans against Jian Wushuang. The Immortal Dynasty and Boundless Demon sect even fought with him, so they definitely did not want to face a situation similar to the experts of Cloud Sea Asgard and have half of their experts killed. Within a short amount of time, these sects brought out enough divine gem to pacify Xian Yi. Okay, let's forget it. If anyone has any complaints, feel free to tell them to come find me. After he said that, he gave a profound look toward the 7 remaining people in Cloud Sea Asgard and left with a wave of his sleeves. While watching Xian Yi leave, the experts finally sighed in relief. Even the 8 Eternal Realm experts from the ancient sect felt a sense of relief. Palace Master Destruction said immediately, "I finally know why Xian Yi is not interested in the opportunities in the Eternal Zone. He is so powerful that he is not inferior to Dao Master. So, why would he care these small benefits?" Exactly, Mo Dao nodded and continued. "I knew Xian Yi was powerful, but I didn't know he had reached such a high level. No wonder the other sects are so afraid of him. I'm sure Cloud Sea Asgard is full of regret now that they've lost 7 Eternal Realm experts. Cloud Sea Asgard did suffer a big loss. I suppose they will try to cause trouble for Xian Yi in the future." Cause trouble for Xian Yi? I don't think any of them have the guts to do that except for their palace master himself. Xian Yi is quite crafty though. He personally killed people in Cloud Sea Asgard, but he only extorted the other 2 magnates for 10 million divine gems each. So, he didn't offend them as badly as he did Cloud Sea Asgard. And, Cloud Sea Asgard won't be able to do anything to him on their own. The surrounding experts from each sect continued to talk about what just happened while constantly glancing towards the remaining 7 Eternal Realm experts from Cloud Sea Asgard. In the area where Cloud Sea Asgard had gathered, Lady Red's face had turned dark red because of all the bizarre looks she felt coming from her surroundings. At this moment, a message token in her possession reacted. Of course, the owner of this token was their Palace Master. Palace Master has sent a message. Lady Red immediately looked at the token as her eyes sparkled with excitement. But, the message their Palace Master sent was very simple, only 4 words. "Don't upset Xian Yi." Lady Red and the other people in Cloud Sea Asgard were shocked by this message. "Xian Yi killed 7 of our people. Why did the Palace Master warn us not to upset him instead? Why is he so afraid of Xian Yi?" Lady Red was a bit confounded. After a while, she sighed and said, "Let's go." The remaining people from Cloud Sea Asgard slowly left, along with their disciples. Naturally, the experts of the other sects left as well. The trip to the Eternal Zone had come to an end. However, the incident with Xian Yi killing 7 Eternal Realm experts from Cloud Sea Asgard quickly spread throughout all of the firmament territory and continued to be a topic of discussion for quite a long time. However, it wasn't just because of Xian Yi's anger that Zhen Wushuang's death had become a heated topic among the experts in the firmament territory. Quite a few people were sorry for Zhen Wushuang because he was such a peerless genius. However, as one of the main characters of this incident, Xian Yi was sitting on the 2nd floor of the sword tower, leisurely brewing his tea. On a table close to the wall, there was a floating shadow which appeared to be a sword spark. It was the sword spark that had been taken from Zhen Wushuang's sword heart with a special method when Xian Yi took him as his personal disciple. This sword spark had not vanished, which meant that Zhen Wushuang was still alive. Chapter 719, Pure Soul Aura. Chapter 719, Pure Soul Aura. While the outside world was being turned upside down because of Zhen Wushuang's death, there was also something happening at the inner layer of the Eternal Zone. There were a total of 10 tribes in the Demon God clan and there were over 10,000 people in each of the tribes. The tribes lived together in a friendly manner and almost never battled amongst themselves. There were numerous houses, built completely out of stone, on the endless mountains in 8th tribe. Even the gate was made of stone. Jiyu Yang, who carried a longbow, stepped into 8th tribe with Zhen Wushuang on his back. "Brother Jiyu Yang, are you back from hunting?" "Jiyu Yang, who is the man on your back?" All the clansmen in the tribe were very curious. "Father, who are you carrying?" A young man with a burly figure walked up to Jiyu Yang. "This clansman is seriously injured. Go get Elder Ying," said Jiyu Yang. "Okay." The young man nodded and then immediately went to look for Elder Ying. Jiyu Yang took Jian Wushuang to a stone house and placed him on the stone bed that was inside. A short while later, the young man came in with a woman who had a weathered face and a dragon head crutch. Elder Ying, Jiyu Yang spoke humbly. Elder Ying replied. Then she walked to the bed and looked at Jian Wushuang with a slightly cloudy gaze. At this moment, Jian Wushuang's consciousness had already slipped into a coma. This kid, Elder Ying stared at Jian Wushuang, then her eyes slightly narrowed before suddenly opening wide as a bright light flashed through her eyes. Elder Ying, what's wrong? Jiyu Yang asked in confusion. The kid has very pure soul aura, she said. His soul aura is very pure. Jiyu Yang's face changed as he stared at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Soul aura is the essence of our clansman. The purer the soul aura is, the stronger his bloodline is. Besides, with such a pure soul aura, his bloodline is definitely comparable to the 10th generation or maybe even higher. Elder Ying was amazed, but there was also a look of pleasant surprise on her face. What? The 10th generation? Jiyu Yang could not help being surprised. Their population was the ancient god clan. As for the demon god clan, it was what the experts from the firmament territory called them. Their ancestor was the ancient god, someone with enough power to destroy a whole world. They all had the bloodline of the ancient god, but after their ancestor disappeared, his bloodline became thinner and thinner as it passed down from generation to generation. They had lived in the Eternal Zone for numerous years, but the bloodline had been passed down for hundreds of generations and the number of clansmen had reached 1 million. However, the bloodline of the ancient gods continued to grow thinner. As of now, in their ancient god clan, after baptism, 9 out of 10 clansmen could only become a copper-armored ancient god, and some, even after the baptism, could not awaken their bloodline to become an ancient god at all. Only a very small number of people could awaken the silver-armored ancient god's bloodline. Gold-armored ancient gods were even rarer. There were only about 20 gold-armored ancient gods among the 10,000 people in the tribe. This was because the bloodline of the ancient gods was getting thinner and thinner. Just as Elder Ying said, the ancient god bloodline that was possessed by the clansmen of the 10th generation was extremely thick. However, there were few people who were within 10 generations among the ancient god clan in the Eternal Zone. With such a pure soul aura and such a thick bloodline, there'll be no problem for this kid to become a silver-armored ancient god after baptism. He even has a good chance of becoming a gold-armored ancient god, said Elder Ying. Gold-armored ancient god? Jiyu Yang was moved. There were under 20 gold-armored ancient gods in the whole tribe and each one of them was very old and highly respected. The birth of every gold-armored ancient god was a source of great joy for the entire ancient god clan. Where did you meet this kid? Which tribe is he from? Asked Elder Ying. I don't know which tribe he is from. I only know that he is called Jian Wushuang. When I was hunting outside, I happened to meet him while he was being chased by an outsider. I saved him and brought him back with me, said Jiyu Yang. Jian Wushuang? Elder Ying frowned. Our ancient god clan mostly use the ancient surnames. Although some of us use other surnames, there are very few. Besides, I have never heard of anyone who once used Jian as their surname. However, no matter which tribe he comes from, since he has such pure soul aura, he must be a clansman of our ancient god clan. It's impossible for that to be wrong. Jiyu Yang, go outside and leave this kid to me, said Elder Ying. Aye. Jiyu Yang nodded and gave Jian Wushuang one more glance before leaving. Only Jian Wushuang and Elder Ying were left in the stone house now. Elder Ying sat down beside the stone bed and stretched out her arm. Upon closer inspection, a bulge could be seen moving slowly. A moment later, an extremely ferocious-looking bug with countless tentacles climbed out of her arm. Ju, heal the kid and give him a drop of the essence blood you've stored. Elder Ying opened her mouth. Hearing this, the ferocious bug on her arm stared up at Elder Ying with an obvious look of astonishment. Essence blood had great effects and it could only save 1 drop every 10,000 years, so it was very precious. Normally, it wouldn't give it to anyone, but Elder Ying had asked it to give 1 drop to Jian Wushuang. Although it was surprised, it obeyed Elder Ying. It quickly climbed onto Jen Wushuang's arm and spat out a drop of essence blood. The moment this drop of blood entered Jen Wushuang's body, his body couldn't help absorbing it. After it was absorbed, the wounds in his body began to recover at an alarming speed. Even Jen Wushuang's arm that had been cut by the black-robed elder, and Chao, began to repair itself at this moment. It was very clear that this drop of essence blood was so effective that it might even be able to save someone who was at death's door. What's more, Jen Wushuang's vitality soared once he finished completely absorbing this drop of essence blood. If the life of a skyscraping realm cultivator was 10,000 years, then the current Jen Wushuang could live for more than 50,000 years. After another moment, Jen Wushuang's broken arm had been completely restored, and the majority of the injuries to his body had also been cured, but the essence blood could not completely restore his exhausted spiritual power. On the stone bed, Jen Wushuang's consciousness began to come back and his eyes slowly opened. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw Elder Ying next to the bed. "Kid, are you awake?" Elder Ying was looking at him softly. Chapter 720, The Descendant of the Militant Warrior. Chapter 720, The Descendant of the Militant Warrior. Is this the demon god tribe? Jen Wushuang looked around as he thought back to how he met Jiyu Yang, who then carried him back to the tribe. "We're the 8th tribe. I'm an elder of 8th tribe and you can call me Elder Ying." Elder Ying looked at him. "You were badly hurt, so I asked Ju to give you a drop of essence blood. With that, you should be mostly healed now." Just then, the extremely ferocious bug, with many tentacles, on her arm raised its head and looked at Jen Wushuang. Jen Wushuang looked back at it. Although he didn't know how precious its essence blood was, he was well aware of how severe his injury was. Under normal circumstances, even if he had used a general elixir or treasure, it would have been impossible for him to recover without half a month. But that drop of essence blood from the bug had almost completely healed him in a very short time. "Thank you," said Jen Wushuang. "We're of the same clan, so you don't need to be so polite." Elder Ying smiled and continued, "By the way, I heard from Jiyu Yang that your name is Jen Wushuang. Which tribe are you from?" "Tribe?" Jen Wushuang slightly narrowed his eyes, then shook his head and said, "I'm not from any of the tribes." He didn't intend to continue lying. Previously, in the outer layer, he could leave immediately if he needed to, so he wasn't afraid of what would happen if the demon gods investigated his identity. But now he was inside a house that belonged to the demon god clan. He was in one of the demon god clan's tribes. At this moment, if he continued lying to Elder Ying and said that he was from 7th tribe or one of the other tribes, then it would be unwise. "Not from a tribe?" Elder Ying cocked her brows. "Then you must be related to one of those militant warriors who wander around, constantly putting their lives on the line." "Militant warriors?" Jen Wushuang was curious, but he remained unmoved on the surface. "Our ancient god clan is innately militant and possesses an enormous battle intent due to the instincts passed down from their ancestor, the ancient god," Elder Ying said, "but, ever since our ancestor disappeared, we have been living here and have very little contact with the outside worlds. So there aren't many battles. Even when there is a battle, it is only a contest between clansmen. Some of the clansmen can't stand it, so they leave the tribes and enter the boundless wasteland on the other end of the world to fight against the fiercely violent wild's beast. Some of them die in the intense battles with the wild's beasts while some of them survive and continue wandering the line between life and death. As time goes by, most of these clansmen should have died. There ought to be very few clansmen who are still fighting with wild's beasts in the boundless wasteland. We call these people militant warriors and you should be a descendant of them." "Oh." Jen Wushuang understood now. These militant warriors left their homeland and tribes, but they still possess our great ancestors' bloodline and are still clansmen of our ancient god clan, so you are as well. Elder Ying looked at Jen Wushuang while smiling and said, "Since you're already here, you can stay in our tribe for a while. Also, I don't think you have gone through the demon god baptism before, have you?" "No." Jen Wushuang shook his head slightly. "Our tribes will collectively perform a demon god baptism every once in a while. At that time, the clansmen of our tribes who have reached the baptism requirements will have their ancient god bloodline awakened through the baptism. If you're strong enough, you can come with us. After all, only when you awaken the ancient god bloodline can you truly be counted as the offspring of the ancient god, said Elder Ying. What are the requirements for baptism? Jian Wushuang couldn't help asking. Under normal circumstances, you only need to be an adult. Of course, those clansmen who have an extremely pure soul aura and lineage can awaken their bloodline in advance. And, your lineage definitely meets the requirements, said Elder Ying. Oh. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and asked, how long will it be before the next baptism? There's an adult baptism every year, so the next baptism will be very soon, Elder Ying said and smiled. Jian Wushuang nodded. After that, he asked some more questions which were simple common sense to the clansmen who had lived in the tribes. Elder Ying answered his questions patiently. Jian Wushuang had also asked Jiyu Qiong some questions before, so he already had some knowledge of the ancient god clan that was living here. At the same time, he also gained a new understanding of the Eternal Zone. It wasn't just the ancient god clan, wild beasts also lived in the Eternal Zone. Those wild beasts lived in the boundless wasteland at the other end of the world, occupying half of the territory while the ancient god clan occupied the other half. The holy place of the ancient god clan covered a vast territory in the very center of the Eternal Zone. However, ever since their ancestor, the ancient god, disappeared, the holy place had been completely sealed and no one had been able to even set foot in it. The ancient god clan had never left the Eternal Zone, even after so many years. Because of the ancient god bloodline, the ancient god clansmen became ancient gods through baptism after they became adults, but a small portion of them had a very thin bloodline, so they couldn't awaken their own bloodline no matter how hard they tried. Only when their bloodline was really awakened could they be considered as ancient gods. Even so, there were strong and weak ancient gods. Unlike the human experts in the eternal world, the ancient gods were not divided into the skyscraping realm, divine realm, eternal realm, and so on. Their realm was determined by the number of quadrangular stars on their chest. The moment their bloodline was awakened, quadrangular stars would naturally condense on their chests. If there was one star, they would be a one-star ancient god. A one-star ancient god was equal to a human who was in the divine realm. If they condensed 2 stars, they would be a 2-star ancient god, which was equal to the eternal realm for human beings. If they condensed 3 stars, they would be the same as a supreme Tao master among the humans. There were 10 tribes and millions of people in the ancient god clan. Up till now, 1-star ancient gods at least occupied more than 90% of the population, and there were also quite a few 2-star ancient gods. Generally, the number of 2-star ancient gods in each tribe exceeded 3 figures. In other words, there were at least 100 2-star ancient gods that were comparable to the eternal realm for human beings. As for 3-star ancient gods, Elder Ying did not say much about them, but Jian Wushuang could roughly guess that there was more than one 3-star ancient god in the ancient god clan. After knowing this, even Jian Wushuang couldn't help being shocked by the awesomeness of the ancient god clan. 99% of the 10,000 clansmen already had their bloodline awakened. Once their bloodline was awakened, even the weakest clansman was a 1-star copper-armored ancient god who could compete with an advanced divine realm expert. There were more than 100 2-star ancient gods in each tribe. 10 tribes added up to over 1,000 2-star ancient gods which could compete with eternal realm experts. Could all the eternal realm experts of all sects in the whole firmament territory even be able to reach half of this number? Chapter 721, The Strength of the Ancient God Clan. Chapter 721, The Strength of the Ancient God Clan. The ancient god clan is quite powerful. Jian Wushuang was greatly shocked in the heart. Given the overall strength of the ancient god clan, it wasn't an exaggeration to say they surpassed the entire firmament territory. However, because of certain reasons, the ancient god clansmen could not leave the Eternal Zone, so they had little contact with the outside world. It was only during those 10 days when the outsiders came down every 100 years that they would have any contact with experts and disciples from the firmament territory. The ancient god clan took advantage of this to hone some of the clansmen's abilities through contact with the outsiders. But they would only send the 1-star ancient gods who had just awakened to the outer layer to fight with those divine realm disciples. As for the one-star ancient gods who had previously awakened and possessed great strength, they never took part in the fights. If it was not for the purpose of honing the clansman's abilities, the firmament territory experts and disciples who had broken into the Eternal Zone wouldn't even be able to struggle against the ancient god clan. Kid, take your time and rest up. If you need something, you can look for Jiyu Yang, said Elder Ying before leaving. Jian Wushuang thanked her again. After seeing Elder Ying leave the stone house, he heaved a long sigh of relief. The 10-day deadline is already up, so it's very likely that the entrance to the Eternal Zone has completely closed. Jian Wushuang murmured as he felt a bit bitter. He was being chased, so he had no choice but to escape to the inner layer of the Eternal Zone. As a result, he was saved, but he missed the opportunity to return to the firmament territory. Once the 10-day deadline passed, the Eternal Zone would be sealed again. As for when it would reopen, it would be 100 years from now. According to what Elder Ying had just said, the clansmen of the ancient god clan had no way to leave the Eternal Zone. In other words, he couldn't leave any time soon. If he wanted to leave, he would have to wait for 100 years. 100 years. Jian Wushuang couldn't help shaking his head as he smiled bitterly. However, he did not think much about it. After all, he was already here, so he could only act accordingly. According to Elder Ying, the purity of soul aura determines the concentration of the ancient god bloodline. My soul aura is very pure and my ancient god bloodline is very thick, so I can at least become a silver-armored ancient god. Jian Wushuang mused as he drummed his fingers on the stone bed. He still didn't know if his soul aura had changed or if he really possessed the bloodline of the ancient god clan. He was also not sure that he could successfully awaken the bloodline and become an ancient god after entering the baptismal pool, but it was obvious that he still wanted to try. I have to try. As long as I can awaken the ancient god bloodline and become an ancient god, even if it is just the lowest copper-armored ancient god, it is enough to enhance my strength. Jian Wushuang thought privately. However, the fly in the ointment was that once his bloodline was really awakened and he became a one-star ancient god, his own realm would have a breakthrough from the skyscraping realm to the divine realm. A breakthrough was a good thing, but Jian Wushuang did not want to break through so early because the skyscraping realm was the best stage for increasing his comprehension. Once he broke through and reached the divine realm, he might gain other abilities, but his speed of comprehension would definitely be greatly weakened. I don't need to hurry to do that. Since I'm forced to stay in the ancient god clan for 100 years, I'll have lots of opportunities to enter this baptismal pool. Before that, I can continue cultivating and wait to have the baptism in a dozen years or even at the 99th year, Jian Wushuang thought. While sitting cross-legged on the bed, Jian Wushuang swallowed some elixirs and began to recover his spiritual power. His spiritual power was still exhausted at present. After half a day, 30% of the spiritual power inside Jian Wushuang's body had barely recovered. After sensing that his strength was slowly recovering, Jian Wushuang was slightly relieved, but there was a sharp light in the depths of his eyes that would make people tremble. Cloud Sea Asgard, Immortal Dynasty, Boundless Demon Sec. He clenched his hands. This trip to the Eternal Zone could be said to be the closest to death he had ever been. Thankfully he was calm and decisive, which barely saved his life. In addition, he was forced to stay in the Eternal Zone and he couldn't leave for the next 100 years. But the worst part was that Jiyu Cheung died because of him. All of this was caused by the three magnates. I have never provoked the three magnates, but they have spared no effort to kill me. Very well, you wait and see. Killing intent exploded in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He always drew a clear distinction between kindness and hatred. He wouldn't attack others unless others attacked him. Since the three magnates had provoked him, he would not be kind to them. Of course, he was trapped in the Eternal Zone and couldn't leave for now, so he wasn't a threat to them for the time being, but the situation would be different in 100 years. Time flew by and 3 days had passed since Jian Wushuang was brought to the 8th tribe. After 3 days, Jian Wushuang's spiritual power had been completely restored. He even managed to create another slaughter body since the previous one was killed by An Chao. As long as his 2 original bodies weren't both killed, the one which was killed could be recreated by the other. Jian Wushuang's state had returned to the peak once again. While sitting cross-legged on the bed, Jian Wushuang was wholeheartedly meditating on Tao when there was a loud noise from outside. Jian Wushuang's face changed slightly and he opened his eyes, then he walked out of the house. Immediately after walking outside, while standing in front of the door, he saw lots of clansmen gathered together in a vast open place and two young men fight intensely at the center. Jian Wushuang knew one of the young men. He was Jiyu Lan, the son of the silver-armored ancient god, Jiyu Yang, who carried Jian Wushuang back to the tribe. Jiyu Lan had not reached adulthood yet and still hadn't had his baptism to awaken his ancient god bloodline. The other young man who fought with him also hadn't awakened his bloodline. While watching the fierce fight between the two men, Jian Wushuang walked toward the crowd. The fierce fight was quickly over and the winner was Jiyu Lan. Ha ha, who is not convinced? Feel free to come forward and fight with me. Jiyu Lan had an antagonistic expression as he looked around and his loud hearty laughter sounded throughout the open space. There were quite a few clansmen who also hadn't awakened their bloodline around him, but these people just looked at one another without the intention of fighting. Among the clansmen who hadn't awakened their bloodline and become real ancient gods, Jiyu Lan was obviously the strongest. Chapter 722, Challenging. Chapter 722, Challenging. What? No one has the courage? Seeing no one dare to stand out, Jiyu Lan had a larger smile. Then he noticed Jian Wushuang next to him and his eyes immediately lit up. Jian Wushuang. Jiyu Lan turned to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang raised his head in surprise. I heard from Elder Ying that you're a descendant of the militant warriors. Jiyu Lan paused and then continued, I heard about the stories of the militant warriors long ago. They dared to break into the boundless wilds and fought with the wild's beasts. Because they constantly adventure on the edge of life and death, they are much stronger than the clansmen at the same level. I've always greatly admired them, but I have never been fortunate enough to meet any of them. Until I finally met you, a descendant of the militant warriors. You were injured at that time, so I could not challenge you, but you seem to have recovered. Do you have the courage to fight with me now? Hearing this, Jian Wushuang forced a smile. He just came here to watch the fierce battle, but he never expected that Jiyu Lan would challenge him directly. But Jian Wushuang understood that the clansmen were aggressive by nature. Even though they did not have any conflicts of interest, they often fought with each other. Since he was said to be a descendant of the militant warriors, it was normal for the members of the 8th tribe to challenge him. How about it? Are you brave enough? Jiyu Lan said. Of course. If you want, I'll fight with you. Jian Wushuang's eyes became sharp. He also wanted to know the real strength of the ancient god clansmen. Hearing Jian Wushuang's answer, Jiyu Lan laughed and the other clansmen immediately opened up a path for him. Jian Wushuang walked forward and stood in front of Jiyu Lan. Jian Wushuang, be careful. Jiyu Lan reminded him, then he suddenly stamped his feet heavily. Bang! The ground under his feet immediately cracked. Jiyu Lan turned into a phantom and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. He snorted and clenched his huge fist, releasing an explosive power. His punch seemed to be able to destroy a huge mountain. It caused an intense blast that carried terrifying power. However, Jian Wushuang did not dodge Jiyu Lan's punch. He stood there and also threw a pure punch, but he only exerted 70% of his strength because he was unclear Jiyu Lan's real strength. Even so, he had nearly reached the offensive power of a divine realm expert because of his cultivation method and strong body. The two huge fists quickly collided. Bang! With a muffled sound, Jian Wushuang felt that his right hand go numb and a pain passed along his arm. He was even knocked backward. Jiyu Lan hasn't experienced baptism, so he's not an ancient god yet. According to the levels of human warriors, he's just a skyscraping realm expert. How can he be so physically strong? Jian Wushuang felt it so incredible. He knew that the ancient god clansmen were best at physical strength. But he did not expect that Jiyu Lan would be so powerful before he became an ancient god and be much stronger than ordinary divine realm experts. Whoosh! Jiyu Lan approached Jian Wushuang again and punched with both fists this time. Bang! 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 Each punch rushed towards Jian Wushuang with a terrifying power. Jian Wushuang exerted himself to resist, but he was overpowered by Ji Yulan in terms of physical strength, so he was forced to retreat. Haha, Jian Wushuang, you're just SOSO as a descendant of the militant warriors. I only used 80% of my power to defeat you, Ji Yulan laughed. Jian Wushuang's face darkened. He suddenly turned his palm upside down and a long sword appeared in his palm. It was not the Emperor sword though, it was just an ordinary one. Oh, are you going to use your weapon? Tempage, it makes no difference, Ji Yulan sneered. We'll see, Jian Wushuang smiled confidently. Ji Yulan appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and released another violent punch towards him. However, Jian Wushuang did not punch back this time. Instead, he waved the long sword, causing an immaterial vortex to instantly appear. Ji Yulan's fist landed on the vortex but was continuously weakened by it. In the end, the power of his fist was completely dissipated. This? Ji Yulan looked surprised. Before he could figure it out, Jian Wushuang swung the longsword casually, once again. The sword light appeared to be slow, but it was so fast in Ji Yulan's eyes, making him feel as if he could not dodge it. Ji Yulan felt a little anxious and raised his fist to smash the sword light. Swoosh! He missed the sword light and it continued forward, gliding over his shoulder and leaving a tiny sword scar. Damn it! Ji Yulan's expression changed. He turned back and struck forward with his knee. However, Jian Wushuang dodged it easily and swept out with his long sword, causing another vortex to appear. The vortex surrounded Ji Yulan and slammed him against the ground, but Ji Yulan immediately struggled to stand up. One more time! Ji Yulan shouted and put on a pair of divine-level red boxing gloves, which could enhance his offensive power. Jian Wushuang just stood there, swinging his longsword casually to resist Ji Yulan's attacks and leaving some scars on him. He's too slow and clumsy. His attack method is also too simple and predictable. He has nothing but brute force, Jian Wushuang thought, shaking his head. Ji Yulan was physically strong but weak in other aspects, especially in close combat. Perhaps because he had not experienced any life-and-death battles or mastered any skills. He was like a baby who could raise a heavy sword but was unable to display its full power. Jian Wushuang just waved his sword casually to resolve his attacks with ease and even teased him. Chapter 723, Jiyu Changfeng. Chapter 723, Jiyu Changfeng. Yes, he was teasing him. The clansmen around also discovered it. Jian Wushuang was teasing Ji Yulan. He just stood there and did not move forward at all. Okay, that's enough, a man suddenly said. Ji Yulan stopped attacking after hearing the voice, even though he was unwilling. Brother Feng, Ji Yulan turned to face the man. Jian Wushuang also looked at him. This young man with a sturdy body and a handsome face was more than 2 meters tall and he held a black spear in his hand. The other clansmen looked at him with a hint of worship. The young man directly came to Ji Yulan and said in a low voice, I told you before that your attacks are too simple and that you should adventure in our tribe's underground palace more often, but you always believed that physical strength is more important. Now you're paying the price for it, right? Upon hearing this, Ji Yulan's face flushed with embarrassment, but he could not refute his words. He was indeed defeated due to his lack of combat skills. The underground palace mentioned by the young man was an exclusive place for the clansmen to practice their combat skills. Humph! The young man snorted and turned to Jian Wushuang. A smile appeared on his face before he said, I'm Jiyu Changfeng, brother of Ji Yulan. I just watched you fight with Ji Yulan. You have exceptional swordsmanship and impressive fighting experience. You deserve your title as a descendant of the militant warriors. Could you please fight with me? Jian Wushuang raised his head and glanced at Jiyu Changfeng, but he did not directly assent. Jian Wushuang, Brother Feng is the strongest among the clansmen of the 8th tribe who haven't awakened their bloodline yet. His bloodline is also the purest. After he reaches adulthood and enters the baptismal pool, he can definitely become a silver-armored ancient god or even a gold-armored ancient god, Ji Yulan said. Oh! Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He was very interested in what Jiyu Lan just said. Since the lifespan of the ancient gods was extremely long, it usually took a clansman more than 1,000 years to enter adulthood. Therefore, many of the clansmen in the 8th tribe had not awakened their bloodline yet. Since Jiyu Changfeng ranked first among them, he certainly possessed extraordinary strength. At the very least, he was much stronger than Jiyu Lan. Since that is so, please, Zhen Wushuang said. Be careful. Compared to Jiyu Lan, I'm stronger and have better combat skills. Jiyu Changfeng looked at Zhen Wushuang with a trace of excitement in his eyes. He had only heard of the militant warriors but never really met any of them. He knew that the militant warriors constantly fought with the wild beasts, so they were experienced and had far more excellent fighting skills than the ordinary clansmen. He was shocked by the swordsmanship Zhen Wushuang had displayed just now. He looked forward to sparring with Zhen Wushuang. I'll start. As Jiyu Changfeng shouted, he thrust forward with the black spear. The tip of the spear had a cold glow, even in the sunlight. It was silent, like a poisonous snake striking out from a hole in the ground. So fast. Zhen Wushuang was shocked. He was quite surprised by the speed of Jiyu Changfeng's spear stroke. Jiyu Changfeng was indeed much stronger than Jiyu Lan. Zhen Wushuang dared not underestimate Jiyu Changfeng anymore. With a twist of his wrist, he directly swung the long sword toward the spear. When the sword and spear collided, Zhen Wushuang immediately found that his sword, which should have had the edge, was pushed back by the spear, as Jiyu Changfeng's power was at least twice that of Jiyu Lan's full power. The spear's terrifying force directly knocked back Zhen Wushuang's sword and then continued to stab towards him. Zhen Wushuang stepped backwards to dodge the spear. Jiyu Lan's eyes sparkled, then he suddenly shifted the tip of the spear. It happened in the blink of an eye, which was completely caught Zhen Wushuang off guard. Not bad. Zhen Wushuang's eyes flashed with a hint of excitement. After the first round of fighting, he already realized that Jiyu Changfeng's ability in close combat was much stronger than many ancient sect disciples who were proficient in close combat. His spearmanship was also excellent. However, his comprehension of the Tao was slightly insufficient. But his incredible physical strength could completely make up for his shortcoming in Tao comprehension. It seems that I have to use a few tricks if I want to defeat him. Zhen Wushuang smiled and casually struck the spear's body directly with his sword. The spear tip, which had been close to Zhen Wushuang's body, was deflected to the side and missed its target. Jiyu Changfeng was stunned and glanced at Zhen Wushuang. He never expected that Zhen Wushuang would be able to dodge his spear in this manner. Then, Zhen Wushuang began to exert the full ability of his swordsmanship. He hacked with his long sword faster and faster, with each sword stroke being simple and pure, but exquisite. Jiyu Changfeng was quickly surrounded by sword shadows. What? This swordsmanship. Jiyu Changfeng parried Zhen Wushuang's sword strokes in haste, but he gradually failed to keep up as they became faster and faster. Jiyu Changfeng's face darkened. He exerted himself to stab his long spear forward. The might and incredible force even caused a burst of sound, causing Zhen Wushuang to be shocked as he rushed backward in haste. Their combat stopped. Zhen Wushuang, as a descendant of the militant warriors, your swordsmanship is really strong. Jiyu Changfeng sighed with admiration. Your spearmanship is also good, Zhen Wushuang laughed, but he was quite surprised in his heart. He was definitely just as strong as a superior divine realm expert. Even though he did not use the power of his sword heart, he had used the full ability of his swordsmanship. Even with that, he still could not defeat Jiyu Changfeng. On the contrary, he was forced to retreat by the incredible force that Jiyu Changfeng released. That force, Zhen Wushuang narrowed his eyes slightly. That final blow that Jiyu Changfeng released was much stronger than many advanced divine realm experts when they exerted their secret skills. But Jiyu Changfeng had not awakened his bloodline and become a real ancient god yet. In other words, he was equivalent to a human skyscraping realm expert, but his strength was already so amazing, it was unbelievable. Chapter 724, Star River. Chapter 724, Star River. If I don't use the power of my sword heart, I'm much weaker than him in physical strength. But his fighting skills are inferior to mine and his spearmanship is not as good as my swordsmanship, either, Jian Wushuang thought. Both of them had their own advantages. Jiyu Changfeng was physically strong while Jian Wushuang was excellent at fighting skills and swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang, your swordsmanship is very excellent, but your physical strength is lacking. I guess you haven't cultivated the ancient god secret skill yet? Jiyu Changfeng asked. Ancient god secret skill? Jian Wushuang shook his head. He had heard of the ancient god secret skill and that it could greatly enhance one's offensive power. It was the best among the secret skills which could enhance offensive power. For sect experts in the firmament territory, there were 3 great opportunities in Eternal Zone: Demon God Essence Blood, Life and Death Baptismal Pool, and the ancient god secret skill. I knew it. Seeing Jian Wushuang shake his head, Jiyu Changfeng was not surprised. Through his fight with Jian Wushuang, he had already discovered that Jian Wushuang was physically weak. It was obvious that Jian Wushuang had not cultivated the ancient god secret skill yet. Jiyu Changfeng, are you saying that you've cultivated the ancient god secret skill? Jian Wushuang asked. He knew that those secret skills which could enhance one's offensive power were only accessible to divine realm experts in the firmament territory. Since he was just a skyscraping realm expert, he was not qualified to cultivate them yet. This obviously made him weaker than divine realm experts in physical strength. If it were not for his sword heart, he would not be able to compete with those advanced or superior divine realm experts no matter how strong his swordsmanship was. After hearing his words, Jiyu Changfeng blinked and said, "Of course I've cultivated the ancient god secret skill. Actually, everyone in our tribe, including the clansmen who have not awakened their bloodline, have cultivated the ancient god secret skill. But the levels we have cultivated are different. For example, Jiyu Lan is cultivating level 2, which can enhance his physical strength 6 times. I'm cultivating level 3, which can directly enhance my physical strength 9 times. Really? Jian Wushuang opened his eyes wide in astonishment. No wonder Jiyu Changfeng and Jiyu Lan were so strong physically. Both of them had cultivated the ancient god secret skill. The ancient god secret skill could also enhance one's power was available to the clansmen who had not awakened their bloodline. Since they can cultivate it at their current level, what about me? Jian Wushuang thought. Let's go. I will take you to the place where we cultivate the ancient god secret skill, Jiyu Changfeng said and laughed. Okay, Jian Wushuang nodded his head eagerly, his eyes full of excitement. Jian Wushuang followed Jiyu Changfeng to a hillside. The entire 8th tribe was located on a huge mountain. On this hillside, there was a large black temple. It looked ancient and one could feel its mysteriousness even before entering. There were several clansmen standing guard in front of the temple. When Jiyu Changfeng and Jian Wushuang approached the front gate, the clansmen immediately turned and faced them. However, they could feel the pure spiritual aura of Jian Wushuang, so they glanced at him and then allowed him to enter. Except for the bright gems shining in the slightly dim temple, there were no other decorations. Jian Wushuang, look at the surrounding stone walls, Jiyu Changfeng said. Jian Wushuang immediately fixed his eyes upon them and was shocked. He realized there were ancient words carved all over the stone walls. What's this? Jian Wushuang frowned as he began to read the ancient words. This is Star River, the ancient god secret skill I'm cultivating. You can start reading from there, Jiyu Changfeng pointed to a stone wall. Jian Wushuang looked up and found the first chapter of this secret skill. One of the 3 ancient god secret skills, the Star River secret skill. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Even though he knew about the existence of the ancient god secret skill, he did not expect there to be 3 types. The Star River secret skill that was carved on the stone walls in front of him was one of the 3 ancient god secret skills that could greatly enhance one's offensive power. With a trace of doubt, Jian Wushuang continued to read it. The Star River secret skill was divided into many levels, level 1, level 2, and the 11th level. This stone wall recorded the 11 levels of the Star River secret skill. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang had been completely taken aback. 11 levels. There are 11 levels. How could that be possible? Jian Wushuang looked at it in shock as he was roared wildly in his heart. He realized that the Star River secret skill was the one which Vice Palace Master Ling Yu mentioned before. But Vice Palace Master Ling Yu said that this secret skill was comprised of 5 levels, each of which could enhance one's offensive power 3 times. After he cultivated to level 5, his offensive power would be enhanced 15 times. This secret skill was absolutely heaven-defying. After all, the secret skills in the firmament territory or even the eternal world could only enhance one's offensive power 10 times at most. Because of this secret skill attracted experts and disciples from all the sects in the firmament territory. All the experts wanted to obtain more ancient god essence blood and cultivate the highest level of the secret skill so that they could enhance their offensive power 15 times, which would be a huge advantage. However, none of them knew that the secret skill they were crazy for actually consisted of 11 levels instead of 5. Each level could enhance one's offensive power 3 times. After someone cultivated the highest level, his offensive power would be enhanced 33 times. Terrifying. What a terrifying secret skill. Jian Wushuang was completely taken aback. The experts in the firmament territory were already quite eager to obtain the first 5 levels. If they knew that there were 11 levels, they would definitely go crazy. Oh no! Jian Wushuang's look suddenly changed. He stared at level 11 and read it through quickly. He was even more astonished. The 11th level? No, the Star River secret skill has more than 11 levels. The 11th level isn't the end of the Star River secret skill. Chapter 725, Level 3. Chapter 725, Level 3. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes wide while his heart was beating violently. He asked, Jiyu Changfeng, does the Star River secret skill consist of more than 11 levels? Yes, it does. Jiyu Changfeng nodded his head and said, the higher levels of Star River and the other 2 ancient god secret skills have higher requirements for the bloodline's purity and strength, so they are not carved in this temple. Only gold-armored ancient gods are qualified to cultivate them. What? Only gold-armored ancient gods are qualified? Jian Wushuang's expression changed slightly. Among the millions of ancient god clansmen, there were only about a dozen gold-armored ancient gods in each tribe. That was to say, only a few people were qualified to cultivate the other 2 ancient god secret skills and the higher levels of the Star River secret skill. Nevertheless, the 11 levels of the Star River secret skill are sufficient for ordinary clansmen. For example, many 1-star silver-armored ancient gods in our tribe can cultivate level 9 of the Star River secret skill at most, Jiyu Changfeng said. Level 9? Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. Level 9 of the Star River secret skill could enhance one's offensive power 27 times. It was already very amazing. That explains the incredible strength of the ancient god clansmen, in spite of their shallow comprehension in the Tao. Even the weakest 1-star copper-armored ancient god can compete with an advanced divine realm expert, Jian Wushuang sighed. When he was in the outer layer of the Eternal Zone, he had witnessed how the ancient gods fought with the human disciples in the divine realm. Those demon gods had poor Tao comprehension, but they possessed a terrifying level of strength. Any copper-armored ancient god was as strong as or even much stronger than an advanced divine realm expert. Not to mention the fact that those ancient gods had just awakened their bloodline and gone to the outer layer to practice their combat skills. They would be comparable to superior divine realm experts in no time at all, even if they were just 1-star copper-armored ancient gods. That was due to their incredible physical strength, which resulted from their unique talent and, more importantly, the Star River secret skill. Once their bloodline was awakened, these 1-star ancient gods could cultivate level 6 or 7 of the Star River secret skill, which would enhance their offensive power 18 or 21 times. With such an advantage in physical strength, they would be completely terrifying at that time. Jian Wushuang, your bloodline is very pure, even purer than mine. Since I've cultivated up to level 3, you will definitely be able to as well. But that's the highest level we can cultivate. We can't cultivate level 4 or higher until we go through the baptism and awaken our bloodline, Jiyu Changfeng said. Level 3? Jian Wushuang nodded to himself. All right. You can cultivate by yourself. I'll wait for you outside, Jiyu Changfeng said before walking out of the temple. After that, Jian Wushuang was left alone in the temple. Jian Wushuang sat down cross-legged and looked at the stone wall in front of him with a hint of expectation. The human warriors in the firmament territory are extremely eager to cultivate the Star River secret skill, but they have to find ways to get ancient god essence blood before cultivating it. The higher levels require more ancient god essence blood. Can I cultivate the Star River secret skill without the essence blood? Jian Wushuang thought. He was not completely sure whether he really had the ancient god bloodline or not. But now, he could find out by cultivating the Star River secret skill. As long as he could cultivate 1 or 2 levels of the Star River secret skill successfully without absorbing ancient god essence blood, it would mean that he really did possess the ancient god bloodline and could definitely transform into an ancient god after experiencing the ancient god baptism. If he failed, it meant that he just had a similar spiritual aura to the ancient gods instead of possessing the ancient god's bloodline. Let me start. Jian Wushuang started to cultivate level 1 on the stone wall without making too much preparation. It was comparably the easiest one, so Jian Wushuang started cultivating it. However, he discovered that he had succeeded in cultivating it on the first try. Did I succeed? Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled with excitement. As he had succeeded without absorbing the ancient god essence blood, it meant that he really did have the ancient god's bloodline. He began to practice level 2 without pause. The Star River secret skill was closely related to the ancient god bloodline, so the purer his bloodline was, the easier it would be for him to cultivate it. Obviously, Jian Wushuang possessed a very pure ancient god bloodline, so he cultivated the first 3 levels of the Star River secret skill in less an hour. He stood up and activated the Star River secret skill while still inside the temple. It's so strong. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists and felt his power increase by 9 times. At this moment, his eyes sparkled with excitement. Because he cultivated the heavenly creation skill, he had already been comparable to a divine realm expert in physical strength. Now that the Star River secret skill had enhanced his physical strength 9 times, he was even stronger than an ordinary divine realm expert in all aspects, even though he was still just a skyscraping realm expert. Now, even if I don't use my sword heart, I can compete with those superior divine realm experts. If I do use my sword heart, very few superior divine realm experts can defeat me, Jian Wushuang thought with a confident look. Of course, he was referring to the human superior divine realm experts in the firmament territory. It would be different when he encountered special clans like the Ancient God clan. For example, the gold-armored ancient god he met in the outer layer of the Eternal Zone. That 1-star gold-armored ancient god had easily smashed Long Dao, the genius disciple of the Immortal Dynasty, to death with a single hammer. With such terrifying strength, he was far stronger than superior divine realm experts. He was probably comparable to eternal realm experts. However, Jian Wushuang should still be weaker than that gold-armored ancient god. The Star River secret skill can be cultivated to a higher level. Jian Wushuang looked at the stone walls eagerly, but then he shook his head. Unfortunately, I'm only in the skyscraping realm. I can't cultivate the higher levels until after the baptism, when I transform into an ancient god. Chapter 726, Underground Palace. Chapter 726, Underground Palace. After cultivating up to the 3rd level of the Star River secret skill, Jian Wushuang immediately left the palace. Outside of the palace, Jiyu Changfeng was still waiting quietly. After seeing Jian Wushuang, Jiyu Changfeng asked, "How did it go?" "I have made it to the 3rd level," Jian Wushuang said with a smile. "I knew it," Jiyu Changfeng said and also revealed a smile. "Jiyu Changfeng, I heard you talk to Jiyu Lan about the underground palace." "What is that?" Jian Wushuang asked. "The underground palace is a place our tribe uses for honing the fighting skills of disciples. If you want to go there, I can guide you," Jiyu Changfeng said. "All right. Lead the way," Jian Wushuang said. Jiyu Changfeng raised his eyebrows, then guided Jian Wushuang to the underground palace. Under the guidance of Jiyu Changfeng, Jian Wushuang arrived at an empty loft with a passage that led to the underground. Following the passage, Jian Wushuang quickly reached the underground palace. The underground palace was actually a huge open space with a humongous gem shining at the top. Because of this gem, there was not much difference between being in the underground palace or being outside. "Is this the underground palace?" Jian Wushuang asked while looking at the space, which had 3 different regions in the center. These 3 regions were covered by 3 great restrictions, in which only a few figures were visible. Jiyu Changfeng explained, "The underground palace can only be used to hone fighting skills. While you train here, the opponents you face are the puppet fighters which were obtained by the ancient god clan while following the ancient god many years ago. Those puppet fighters were specifically refined so they would be the most suitable opponents for honing fighting skills." The 3 regions of the underground palace represent 3 different tests: the heaven level test, earth level test, and human level test. In the human level test, the opponent is only 1 puppet fighter. However, the earth level test has 10 puppet fighters. As for the heaven level test, there are 100 puppet fighters. And each test is divided into 9 levels of difficulty. Every test has different levels of difficulty. So, even if you can defeat the 10 puppet fighters in the first level of the earth level test, that does not mean you can beat the 100 puppet fighters in the first level of the heaven level test. The test is different, so the difficulty is different as well. The difficulty of these tests can be controlled by the challenger, so you can adjust it yourself. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. 3 regions, 3 different tests, all different in nature, and each test had 9 levels of difficulty. Besides, those who fight in the underground palace can only rely on their own fighting skills, nothing else can be used. "Of course, your swordsmanship can be used," Jiyu Changfeng said, "but there is no sense in telling you so much about it. Pick a region and give it a try." "Okay," Jian Wushuang said and nodded his head. After looking at the 3 regions in front of him, he didn't hesitate and went directly towards the central region, where the earth level test was. As soon as he entered the restriction, Jian Wushuang saw 10 towering figures standing in front of him. He chose to enter the earth level test, so the opponents were obviously the 10 puppet fighters. "Come on." The Emperor's sword appeared in his hands and battle intent flickered in his eyes. The 10 puppet fighters also did not give him any time. As soon as Jian Wushuang appeared, the 10 puppet fighters all began to move at the same time. Swish, 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 swish. The 10 puppet fighters all used different weapons, so they were good at different aspects. Some were good at offensive power, some were good at speed, and some were good at entanglement. The 10 puppet fighters instantly charged towards him and attacked at the same time. Jian Wushuang also forwarded to the fight immediately with moving Emperor sword in succession. But at the moment of the first movement, Jian Wushuang felt quite surprised. There is no trace of the Dao. In the underground palace, it seems to be impossible to use the Dao. Does that mean it's useless no matter how high one's comprehension of the Dao is? Jian Wushuang immediately thought about it, but he quickly discovered that it was not just the Dao that couldn't be used here, even his sword heart couldn't be used in this fight. He was also unable to perform the Star River secret skill. The only thing he could depend on was his own swordsmanship. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The Emperor sword in Jian Wushuang's hands was an eternal weapon, but its power also couldn't be used at all. It was the same as fighting these puppet fighters while using an ordinary long sword. The power and speed of these puppet fighters is similar to mine, as are all the other aspects. The only difference is in fighting skill, Jian Wushuang thought while narrowing his eyes slightly. Now, he clearly understood the training in the underground palace. The training in the underground palace was only aimed at their fighting skills. Any secret skills or other methods of fighting were of no use at all. And the strength of these puppet fighters was also the same as his, with the only difference being in their fighting skill. These 10 puppet fighters that Jian Wushuang was facing were at the first level of difficulty, only possessing very average fighting skills. Although the power of the 10 puppet fighters was no less than Jian Wushuang and the battle was 10 against 1, Jian Wushuang was still easily able to defeat all 10 puppet fighters in a few moments. The first level of difficulty is no threat to me. Let me try the second level of difficulty. Jian Wushuang used his mind to communicate with the 10 puppet fighters, causing all 10 puppet fighters to strike at Jian Wushuang again. This time, the fighting skills of these 10 puppet fighters were much better than they were a moment ago. The fighting skills for all the puppet fighters improved and they even teamed up against him. This time, even Jian Wushuang wasn't able to win as easily as he had last time. However, he still succeeded while only depending on his swordsmanship. Next was the third level of difficulty. After reaching the third level, the fighting skills of these 10 puppet fighters had been extremely brilliant. Jian Wushuang even felt that the fighting skills of these puppet fighters while at the third level was not weaker than Jiyu Changfeng. That's to say, fighting these 10 puppet fighters was like fighting 10 Jiyu Changfengs that had joined forces to attack him. Fortunately, since their strength was equal, Jian Wushuang was able to muddle through with his excellent swordsmanship. After a while, he finally defeated a puppet fighter after finding a flaw. After he beat one of them, he was able to beat the rest of them, one by one. Jian Wushuang succeeded in the third level of difficulty. However, on the fourth level, each of the 10 puppet fighters had a dreadful level of fighting skills, not much less than Jian Wushuang's. Once the 10 puppet fighters joined hands, even though Jian Wushuang tried his best, he only managed to fight them for a while before he was defeated. Chapter 727, Battling Techniques. Chapter 727, Battling Techniques. As Jian Wushuang walked out of the restriction of Earth level test, Jiyu Changfeng immediately stepped forward to greet him. Jian Wushuang, have you really passed the third stage of the Earth level test? Jiyu Changfeng stared at Jian Wushuang incredulously. Although he had remained outside the restriction the whole time, he had been watching Jian Wushuang fighting inside the restriction with great concentration. In the Earth level test, what Jian Wushuang faced was 10 puppet fighters, which could merely count as the medium level among the 3 kinds of tests. Once the test progressed to the second stage, no ordinary clansman could power through it. So far, even Jiyu Changfeng himself had been able to pass the second stage of the Earth level test. But Jian Wushuang had now passed the third stage of the Earth level test. When he battled with Jian Wushuang before, he could tell that Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship was of a very high caliber. Added to this, his offensive ability was overwhelming. However, he only expected Jian Wushuang to pass the second stage of the Earth level test at most. But to his surprise, perhaps this guy didn't reveal his true strength when he dueled with me. Jiyu Changfeng muttered to himself. Now, of the 3 types of tests there is, I've tried the Earth level. Next, I'll have a go at the Heaven level test and then the Human level test. Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Then, he headed for the other 2 tests. In the Human level test, he would face only one puppet fighter. Despite the intimidating power this puppet fighter had, the pressure it imposed upon Jian Wushuang was obviously less than the Earth level test. After breaking through the first 3 stages, Jian Wushuang finally failed during the 4th stage. But what was quite remarkable was that he managed to put up a good fight against the puppet fighter in the 4th stage. The final test was the Heaven level test, which was also the most difficult one. In the Heaven level test, his opponents were 100 puppet fighters, which coordinated with each and other advanced on him from all directions. This put Jian Wushuang at a major disadvantage. Jian Wushuang passed the first and the second stage. But in the third stage, the puppet fighter launched ferocious attacks against Jian Wushuang, who exerted all his efforts to defend himself but was eventually defeated. Among the 3 kinds of tests, the Heaven level test is the hardest one to deal with. As to the other 2, they're just fine. Jian Wushuang had now gained a clear understanding of all the tests. After experiencing the 3 varied tests, he began to have high expectations of the Underground Palace. Among the 3 kinds of tests the Underground Palace offered, the Human level test aimed to hone one's individual battling skills. While the Earth level test and the Heaven level test were aimed at testing how a man could handle sieges and converging attacks. Each of these tests was further divided into 9 stages according to their assorted level of difficulty. They provided a great opportunity for men continuously seeking to improve their battle techniques. For Jian Wushuang, This was a perfect place to gain more experience. I thought my battle techniques were already powerful. But who knows, I failed the third stage of the heaven level test in the underground palace. Seems that there is still much room for improvement in terms of my battle techniques and swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang murmured, his hands clenched tightly. Now that he had been trapped in the ancient god clan, it was impossible for him to get out. As he would be here for a long time, he would not just lie there and do nothing. Instead, he decided to try every means to improve his strength, including polishing his battle techniques. These kinds of techniques would certainly come in handy when he was in a fierce fight or tangled warfare. For the remainder of his days there, Jian Wushuang spent most of his time inside the underground palace, constantly familiarizing himself with these three sorts of test. He continually made progress by undergoing the pitched battles day and night. It could be said that he had been challenging himself. And his offensive ability was also enhanced. The 8th tribe was quiet and as uneventful as ever. However, many clansmen of the 8th tribe already heard that Jian Wushuang was honing his skills in the underground palace feverishly, and many of them could not help but be amazed by his gallantry. Soon, a month went by. Inside the stone house, Jiyu Yang was busy polishing his longbow. Just then, Jiyu Lan ran towards him from outside. "Father!" Jiyu Lan shouted, a little out of breath. "What's the matter?" Jiyu Yang stopped what he was doing and turned to look at Jiyu Lan. "That Jian Wushuang," Jiyu Yang stammered, still out of breath. "Jian Wushuang?" Jiyu Yang's expression changed. Jian Wushuang was rescued and brought here by Jiyu Yang. Knowing that Jian Wushuang was a descendant of the militant warriors, not only Jiyu Yang, but the whole tribe had been paying close attention to his progress. "What's the matter with Jian Wushuang?" Jiyu Yang urgently repeated. "Father, Jian Wushuang has been practicing in the underground palace since he arrived here, right? And a month ago, he passed the third stage of the earth level test in his first attempt but failed at the third stage of the heaven level test." Jiyu Lan said. "I know that." Jiyu Yang nodded. Thanks to Jiyu Changfeng, the news that Jian Wushuang already passed the third stage of the earth level test had long since spread. Loads of clansmen of the 8th tribe were aware of it. But today, just 1 month after that, Jian Wushuang successfully broke through the third stage of the heaven level test and passed the fourth stage of the human level test and the fourth stage of the earth level test respectively. Jiyu Lan said earnestly. "What?" Hearing this, even Jiyu Yang was astonished. Among the 3 kinds of tests in the underground palace, the most difficult of them was the heaven level test. In spite of there being 9 stages in this test, if a man could pass just 1 stage, his offensive ability would already be in the top rank. If he proceeded to overcome the 2nd stage, he would be even more amazing. As for passing the 3rd stage, only a handful of members of their entire clan had achieved that. Those who had managed to conquer the 3rd stage of the heaven level test in their tribe all reached the level of 2-star ancient god, and Jiyu Yang was one of them. But Jian Wushuang, someone who had neither awakened his bloodline nor become an ancient god, already upgraded his offensive skills to that level. He is really the son of a militant warrior. Militant warriors put their lives on the line every day. Through a large number of life-threatening battles, their offensive abilities have become way stronger than ours. We have become used to living a comfortable life within the tribe. Jiyu Yang could not stifle his praise. At present, the members of the ancient god clan all lived in tribes. Some of them would often participate in fight competitions within their tribes, but these were just competitions and therefore their lives would not be at stake. Maybe the only chance they could put up a real fight was the arrival of outsiders, which usually occurred every 100 years. This would give an opportunity to those clansmen with awakened bloodline and let them realize what a life and death struggle was really like. Nevertheless, due to the lack of experience in life and death combat, when the clansmen of the ancient god clan got in a fight against outsiders, they were usually at a disadvantage. Every time when the outsiders came here, the ancient god clan would suffer a great loss, while the casualty suffered by the outsiders would be minor. Jian Wushuang has an unbelievable talent for battle. He has made such a progress in just 1 month. In the next few years, his progress will certainly be more striking. Ji Yang was quite hopeful of seeing Jian Wushuang's talent grow. Chapter 728, Launching Challenges Frenetically. Chapter 728, Launching Challenges Frenetically. Just as Ji Yang predicted, as time passed, Jian Wushuang was progressing rapidly. After he passed the third stage of the heaven level test, it only took him another 6 months to overcome the fourth stage. Later, Jian Wushuang stayed in the underground palace to hone his fighting skills. And he spent most of his time focusing on the heaven level test. It was the fifth stage of the heaven level test. In this stage, thickly dotted puppet fighters holding various weapons and launching all sorts of attacks would pour in from all directions. Jian Wushuang had to face the siege of 100 puppet fighters all alone, with simply one sword in his hand. His swordsmanship was both unmatched and elaborate, almost flawless. His moves were also incredibly swift. He dashed, shifted, and leaped with great agility, fooling around with the 100 puppet fighters. Although there were 100 puppet fighters besieging him, as he made every move, only 20 or fewer puppet fighters would attack him simultaneously. If all 100 puppet fighters launched an attack simultaneously, Jian Wushuang would have definitely struggled to deal with them. But with only 20 puppet fighters attacking at one time, it was much easier for him to handle. Drop dead. Jian Wushuang's long sword suddenly flashed out like a bolt of lightning, which flitted across the two puppet fighters right in front of him. The sword went so fast that both of the two puppet fighters were struck down before they could react. When the two puppet fighters were defeated, the ring of encirclement before Jian Wushuang instantly revealed a crack. Then, the power of Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship was unleashed. He started fighting frantically. In the end, he fended off all of the 100 puppet fighters and got out. He had passed the fifth stage of the heaven level test. Walking out of the heaven level test, Jian Wushuang felt quite relieved. The heaven level test is far more difficult than the human level test and the earth level test. The scale of the difficulty goes higher and higher in the order of the 9 stages. It only took me 6 months to get through the fourth stage, but to nail the fifth stage, I spent 6 full years. Jian Wushuang exclaimed. By now, he had stayed in the 8th tribe for 6 years and 7 months. During this time, he spent most of his time in the underground palace. But up to now, he only made it to the 5th stage of the heaven level test. There are 9 stages with increasing difficulty. Since the 5th stage is so much harder than the 4th, the 6th stage must be way harder than the 5th. Even for me, without at least 10 years practice, it'll be highly difficult to get through the 6th stage. Jian Wushuang mumbled to himself. But anyway, the speed of his progress already defied the natural order. After all, in the whole 8th tribe, no one had ever passed the 5th stage of the heaven level test before. He was the first one to achieve it, and all it cost him was 6 years. In the eyes of other clansmen, this was almost unthinkable. The tests in the underground palace were extraordinarily useful in upgrading my battling techniques. However, in the 3 kinds of tests, all I need to confront are just puppet fighters. No matter what, puppet fighters are merely puppets. There must still be a huge gap between puppets and real human warriors. I've already conquered the 5th stage of the heaven level test. It would be meaningless to stay on and try to break through the 6th stage. Shaking his head, Jian Wushuang left the underground palace. Soon after he left the underground palace, he went straight for a clansman of the 8th tribe. Ji Jin, I want to challenge you. Jian Wushuang announced, staring at the tall and sturdy clansman of the ancient god clan before him. This clansman was called Ji Jin. He was a 1-star ancient god with an awakened bloodline, a silver-armored ancient god. Although it was not long since he had awakened his bloodline and though his strength was considered average among all the 1-star silver-armored ancient god, he was still on par with a superior divine realm expert of human warriors, or even qualified to be a top-ranking superior divine realm expert. Jian Wushuang, you, a kid with no awakened bloodline, want to challenge me? Ji Jin asked with a curious expression. Yes, take your best shot. Strike now. Jian Wushuang said with overbearing battle intent. Then boy, you'd better be careful, I won't go easy on you. Ji Jin's eyes were glistening with a touch of fury. Then he launched an attack. Jian Wushuang's eyes were burning with eagerness. He immediately thrust his emperor sword forward. He did not perform the sword heart power but had fully released the energy of the third level of the Star River secret skill. Relying on his swordsmanship and his battling techniques he had honed in the underground palace for 6 years, he went straight forward to take on Ji Yujin. At first, Ji Yujin did not treat this fight with Jian Wushuang seriously. But after crossing swords with his opponent, he was taken aback by Jian Wushuang's superior swordsmanship. In that moment, he transformed into a silver-armored ancient god and got ready to unleash all of his power during this battle against Jian Wushuang. The intense battle continued. Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship and battling techniques were more powerful than Ji Yujin's. But without employing the sword heart power, Ji Yujin's strength would have far been superior to Jian Wushuang's. Thus, in the battle of pure force, Jian Wushuang tangled with Ji Yujin for a long time and finally ended up being defeated due to a minor disadvantage. Impressive. Without awakened bloodline, he fought against me solely with his swordsmanship and battling techniques. His abilities can nearly parallel mine. After defeating Jian Wushuang, Ji Yujin felt quite surprised by this battle. Ji Yujin was very clear that, even though he had beaten Jian Wushuang, he merely scraped a win. The strength Jian Wushuang just displayed was not much less than his own. And most crucially, Jian Wushuang was still making rapid progress. There's still plenty of room for my strength to improve. Now, who's next? Jian Wushuang looked to challenge anyone present. There were numerous experts in the ancient god clan. In the 8th tribe, there were already around 10,000 one-star ancient gods that could rival superior divine realm experts of human warriors. Some of them had reached the top level of superior divine realm experts, and some even exceeded the range of what the superior divine realm experts of human warriors were capable of. These clansmen were all targets that Jian Wushuang wanted to challenge. When he challenged others to a fight, he always avoided using his sword heart power. He merely relied on his own strength mingled with the Star River secret skill along with his swordsmanship and battle techniques. These kinds of challenges would be as effective as the tests of the underground palace. Perhaps, it could push the limits of his skills even higher. Challenging others frantically, fighting against others frantically, Jian Wushuang would challenge 3 or 4 one-star ancient gods almost every day. After each of these fights, he would also spend some time reflecting on his performance and summarizing important points. The next day, he would start a new round of challenges. Through this kind of feverish challenges, his strength kept soaring as well. As seasons came and went, time flew by. Now, Jian Wushuang had stayed in the 8th tribe for 10 years. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,